Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Michael Anderson. I'm co-director with Professor Robyn Ewing in the Create Centre, which is hosting this magnificent event this afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the land of the traditional owners of Australia and recognise connection to land, water and culture. I'm currently on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. If you'd like to recognise the land on which you're situated at the moment, please feel free to do so in the chat box. We'd love to see which lands people are on. We'd also like to send our acknowledgement to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we also want to acknowledge that the land that we're on at the University of Sydney, and I'm on the same land, was stolen. It was never ceded, and it will always be Aboriginal land. So thank you very much for joining us today. We've got another in our series on partnerships in the arts, and we're really looking forward today because today is one of the kind of perennial kind of models. It's a bit of a jewel in the crown for the Sydney Theatre Company and the University of Sydney as one of the great enduring partnerships in the arts, and certainly an incredibly powerful testament to what's possible. So the Create Centre has been set up to help us understand how artists and educators and arts companies can work together more closely. And these partnership series talks are a way of trying to put kind of flesh on the bones of that experience, so that people might feel like they understand and are able to be part of that themselves. And so welcome to people who've joined us internationally. Welcome to everyone nationally who's joined us. I also want to just draw your attention to a few upcoming events for Create. We've got some online conferences coming up with Yong Zhao and Pat Thompson. Thomas DeAngelis, who is doing a wonderful job making all this happen, will pop something in the chat box about those events. And we've also got Associate Professor Anne Harris joining us to talk about creativity at one of these seminars in the near future as well. So please go on and have a look and sign up to anything that interests you. But also, while you're there, become a member, because we can keep you advised and in the loop about all of the things that are happening in the Create Centre and really keep you up to date. So anyway, that's enough from me. Without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Associate Professor Robyn Gibson, who's the Deputy Head of School in the Sydney School of Education and Social Work, and has been intimately involved in the work that's going on in the school drama program, and has been for many years. So welcome, Robyn, and take it away.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted to be chairing this webinar focusing on school drama, a partnership between Sydney Theatre Company and the University of Sydney. As Michael mentioned, I was involved in the program at its inception more than a decade ago. And since then, well, it started with only 5 schools. Since then, it's grown across Sydney and New South Wales and beyond. And it's also morphed into other contexts. And we're going to hear a little bit about that later on in this presentation. But I'd like to welcome Robyn Ewing, who I would say would be the founder of the school drama program, and also John Saunders from Sydney Theatre Company. And they're going to talk about their partnership. So I thought I'd start by asking Robyn, another Robyn, can you just give us a sort of a snapshot about how the partnership came into being?
Thank you, Robyn, and hello everyone. The partnership came into being way back in 2008 when I was working with Sydney Theatre Company on a case study for the Theatre Space project, and Helen Rostovsky, who was then the education manager, and I started to talk about the work that I was doing in schools around helping primary teachers become more confident and expert at using drama-rich strategies with quality literature to enhance children's literacy. And I've been working particularly at one school, North Kirkhill Primary School, every Friday morning. And at that time, Kate Blanchett and Andrew Upton had recently become artistic directors at Sydney Theatre Company, and they were very keen that education be an important legacy of their time as artistic directors. So Kate nominated me to go to the Prime Minister's Summit in 2008, and as part of the Towards a Creative Australia stream, and we were able to talk about possibilities there. We continued those discussions afterwards. We had a number of discussions with primary principals first and then primary teachers to talk about how this might work. And it was launched in 2009, as Robyn Gibson said, with 5 schools, 12 teachers and 2 teaching artists to work with the teachers.
So Robyn, what particular principles did you put in place early on to guide the program?
Well, one of the things that was central to the work that I've been doing with teachers and young people in primary classrooms was, first of all, about meeting the professional learning needs of the teachers themselves, rather than imposing what I thought they should be doing. So it was always concerns and needs based. The work that I'd been doing always allowed time for the teachers and I to meet and plan what we were going to do. I'd run a number of workshops experientially for the teachers themselves to be involved in using drama-rich strategies themselves. And a key feature was always that it was a co-mentoring relationship between the teacher and I. So I have always learned just as much from the teachers that I've been working with and from their relationship with the children that they work with. So it wasn't as if I was coming in as the expert over the top. It was always about working together. And I think that co-mentoring has been a really important principle all the way through. The other thing I would add is that it was always important that it was a genuine partnership. There was always very clear communication, and of course it was really important to build the relationships between those of us who are working on developing it. And I'd really like to acknowledge here and pay tribute to both Kate Blanchett and Andrew Upton, but also Helen Rostovsky, who was able to make it happen in lots of ways, and also to Patrick McIntyre, who has been involved from Sydney Theatre Company's perspective as the CEO right from the beginning as well. Patrick had come from working on a similar kind of program with the Australian Ballet, so he really understood what we were working at doing.
You've spoken about the partnership and the relationship, but how has that sort of evolved over time? Well,
as I said, we started very small. We ran a pilot program for 4 years where we worked on how it was going to work best. Initially, the teachers asked for there to be more time, and so we extended the time, for example, that we worked in the classroom. We were there 1.5 to 2 hours once a week over 7 weeks. But right from the beginning, we had questionnaires for teachers both before we began the program and at the end of the time in the classroom. And so the program has really evolved through always listening to teachers' perspective as well as always listening to the perspective of the teaching artists as well, because the teaching artists were bringing their knowledge and expertise about the use of drama-rich strategies and their experience, I guess, in a range of different contexts, sometimes community arts contexts, and there were always opportunities to work, to debrief after a particular term finished. Another really significant thing is the extension of the professional learning that's been always a part of the program, but has extended over time to now being a week. And John might like to talk more about that, because that's a really important part of the program. And over time, we've moved not just from working not only with primary teachers, but also with secondary teachers, with teachers who are working with students who've had sometimes some behaviour issues in juvenile justice centres, and also with speakers of children and secondary students who are learning English, and also with adults and refugees who are also learning English in the Connect Ed program. And Zoe and Victoria are going to talk more about that. So in a sense, that particular program working with primary teachers has evolved and expanded over time, using a lot of the key principles, but also adapting it to meet the needs of the different learners that have benefited from using drama-rich strategies.
Robyn, initially this started in Sydney, but can you just tell us how it is expanded now into across states and, yeah.
Yes, well, we are now in some regional parts of New South Wales, Albury-Wodonga for what. We did have a brief time in Broken Hill as well, and learnt from that experience. We are across Australia. There are different iterations of the way school drama is presented in some of the states, and John might also want to talk a bit about School Drama Hub, which is a different iteration of the original School Drama Classic. And I should say here, because he won't, that John has been really responsible for expanding and adapting the program in these different ways. So we're in most states of Australia. We're not in Tassie yet, but we hope to be eventually. And we're also working in Auckland, New Zealand.
So, seeing you've mentioned John, let's bring John into the conversation. John, how did STC get buy-in from senior leadership and the board to get this program started?
Hi everyone, thanks Robyn. I think that's actually been a really key part of the success story actually of the school drama program, and I think it's a learning that you know, when I talk to my peers at other arts companies that they're interested in. I think part of it, as Robyn said, Kate Blanchard and Andrew Upton were having conversations at the beginning of their tenure as artistic directors about how to work in the education space, and they really wanted education to be one of their legacies. So they wanted to invest in that area. And Robyn Ewing and my predecessor, Helen Hristovsky, were having conversations at the same time, and then those conversations merged. So I think that actually there was something very lucky about those conversations coming together, that Kate and Andrew wanted to work in this space but didn't necessarily know in what way, and through the conversations, gentle conversations, I imagine, with Robyn and Helen, that Kate and Andrew went, this is actually something that that has legs. It's something that's quite unique that STC could try and deliver in partnership with the University of Sydney. And looking around other arts, particularly theatre companies at that point, there wasn't a lot in that primary space, particularly in primary professional learning. So I think Kate and Andrew's buy-in and their ownership over it, and they really do feel ownership over the program, was key. And that helped get buy-in from the board. So there was no money set aside to pilot the program in the first year. And it's a fairly expensive program to run. It costs about $2,500 per teacher involved. And so Kate and Andrew took the idea of the pilot to our board, and board members themselves chipped in money to make that pilot happen, and including the chair of our board at that time. And through that, really, that kind of philanthropic network kind of kept expanding with the program. And I think that's helped keep buy-in over a 10-year period. We, through the relationships that we have with our board and with philanthropists and donors, that has been a huge part of the success. And I think that there is a real feeling of ownership over the program from those donors and from our board. And I mean, I think it's not always, you know, smooth sailing, but I think, you know, we're at 10, 11 years on now from the beginning of the partnership. And as you said, Robyn, it is kind of, or the way that we feel that it is the jewel in the crown for STC, and across the whole company, that we're really proud of the program. It's a big investment, but I think that through that early buy-in, that's been able to ensure that the program has kept going and kept growing for 10 years. It's easy to feed money into a sexy startup, a pilot, and then, you know, a couple of years in, you know, the excitement kind of dies and they go, oh, we gave you the seed funding, you know, you're off to a great start, so keep going. But to sustain that for over 10 years is really difficult.
John, you mentioned that school drama is sort of the jewel in the crown. What are some of the other strengths of this partnership?
I think it comes down to the sort of central principle of the school drama program of being about co-mentoring, and that's very Robyn Ewing. But I think that central principle is the biggest strength, but that's also fed out, and we've applied that principle to every aspect of our work. It is certainly true, I think, for Robyn and I. We very much, I don't know whether I mean her, probably her more than mentor, but we have a good relationship where we both have different strengths, and Sydney Uni and Sydney Theatre Company both have different strengths. So it is a genuine partnership where we couldn't have done it without each other, and it's stronger because of both of us. I think that then we use that central principle to all of our other partners. As Robyn mentioned, we're almost in every state and territory across Australia and over in New Zealand, but we don't come into those areas and deliver ourselves and go move out of the way, we're here. We work in partnership with local arts organisations in those areas, in an authentic partnership as well, so that we can raise the money, we can develop the program and incubate it over a 4-year pilot. We can, you know, raise $250,000, $400,000, you know, now to invest into that program. But we need the expertise of local teaching artists. We need contacts with the schools who have relationships with those schools and principals where there already is trust. So I think that mutual respect, that co-mentoring, I think has been a really central principle for us.
So if they're the strengths of the program, what have been some of the challenging parts or those points of tension?
Oh, Robyn, I think when I came on board in 2013, we'd finished a 4-year pilot of the program, or we were finishing the 4-year pilot of the program. And I think I think that was a time of tension, where we were looking at, we sort of done the pilot, and then what was next? How could this grow? We were looking at the research and the findings around the evaluations, and going, well, how does this help us grow? And how does this help us sort of learn? And I think when there have been moments, and they were moments a long time ago, they were moments 7 years ago, I think it was when perhaps there wasn't the trust in both sides of the partnership, perhaps, of going, actually, we both have different expertise, and we need to really respect those different expertise, and rather than sort of second guessing it, I think. I don't know. Robyn Ewing?
Can I add there, that was a point where we really needed to decide whether we were going to ask schools to contribute to the cost of the school drama program. And I remember that I was worried that if we asked schools to contribute to the cost, I wasn't sure whether schools would come on board. But John, you were very adamant that we needed to do that. And to your credit, I think that's actually strengthened the program, because even though sometimes a school who's disadvantaged is completely subsidised, I think the fact that the schools are investing, and it is a very small amount by comparison to what the program costs, but because they're investing in that with their small professional learning budgets, they are doubly ensuring that they get maximum benefit by inviting other teachers into the classroom when it's happening, or getting the teacher that's involved with the program, or the teachers that are involved with the program to share what they've learned in other classrooms, etc. So I think that tension certainly produced something that was far stronger in the long run. That's one thing that I remember from that time.
Mm. And I think even where even in the conversations about strategy and where to go next, and whether we go to another regional area or whether we go to another metropolitan area, who we approach to work with, they were really big discussions back then, and I think there was also I think sometimes some arts organisations perhaps are very good at getting the big glossy report out, about a program, and going, this is the impact, and if you do this, you get that, and we can change NAPLAN results, and we prove that, and I think that's very dangerous, and I think that sort of research, when people see that research and then they see authentic research, then sometimes that can lead to attention when they were expecting, well, why can't you say that you changed NAPLAN results, and by how much? When that's not the research that we were doing in partnership. I think that caused, some tension, and I think that's something that, as a group, of people here, there are lots of my colleagues here, none of who I'm talking about when I refer to that program, but I think we do need to be careful that we're doing authentic research, and that we're not making claims that actually can't be substantiated through it. I don't know.
Well, you brought up the this area of research. So what have, Robyn, let's direct this to you, and then maybe John would like to come in as well. How have you ensured that the research about the impact of the program has been ongoing, has been rigorous, has been authentic?
Well, I think one of the really important tenets of the program was that we were going to research it from the very beginning. So it's not something that we thought about researching later. And right from the beginning, you and initially Victoria, Campbell as well, were looking through the pilot program to see how the teachers were responding in terms of the surveys. There was benchmarking of some of the children in the class around how they were progressing in the particular literacy area that the teacher had identified that he or she wanted to work with. There was the talking with some interviews with the teachers. There was some interviews and debriefing with the teaching artists, etc. So that research started way back then, and you were involved too in doing a meta-analysis at the end of that pilot study to look at what happened over those first 4 years. But alongside that as well, we were able to involve honours students, Masters by Research students and PhD students in researching different aspects of the program. And so that has been enormously important, I think, in studying different areas and different parts of the program itself and what's been effective and what hasn't. And I guess that over the time that we've been offering school drama, we have developed over 10 different case studies of how schools have responded, how students have responded to school drama, and it's also now studying different aspects of it. So it's not only looking at how the students responded, how the teachers felt that it had helped their professional learning, how the executive felt it had impacted as a professional learning program in the school, but also looking at how it had impacted on children who were learning English, or how you could take school drama to thinking about how it worked in a secondary English classroom. But I think it would, and recently how school drama has been adapted to work in preschool contexts, for example. So over time, because no school, there's no such thing as a like school. Every school is unique. Every teacher and every child and every classroom context is unique. So there's a lot of strength in building up a portfolio of case studies alongside things like the teacher surveys, etc. But John might like to talk a little bit about his own award-winning PhD because he actually looked at 3 different classrooms and worked as both the researcher and the teaching artist in those contexts.
Thanks for that, Robyn. I'll pay you later. I think though, Robyn Gibson, from the Sydney Theatre Company's perspective, that it's been a huge, that's been a really big part of the partnership, is the ongoing, authentic, rigorous research, that it wasn't a one-off evaluation and then we went, oh great, well that's good. It's actually going, well now we're curious about this, so let's investigate that. Let's investigate how sustainable it is in schools, and then we investigate, well actually how's that working with students? How's that working with male students compared to female students? How's that working in juvenile justice context that's different from mainstream schools? And I think that for the company, you know, that's research that we couldn't have afforded to commission, that research, but because it has been in partnership and through an authentic partnership with Sydney Uni and lots of, you know, honours, masters and PhD students along the way, myself and my colleague Zoe Hogan included, that has made a huge impact. And I think lots of the philanthropists that support the program want to see the evidence, and when it is rich, authentic evidence from a whole range of 10 case studies and, you know, years of evaluations, that has been hugely powerful, improving the efficacy and helping them see that this is a really good investment to make within the program.
Well, you've brought Zoe Hogan into the mix, and Robyn's been speaking about how school drama has gone into various contexts from preschool, primary, secondary, juvenile justice. So Zoe, I'm just wondering if you can just maybe tell us about the motivation to extend school drama into adult English as additional language context, specifically because you're working with migrant and refugee populations. So over to you.
Thanks, Robyn. And I suppose this story starts as from my experience as a teaching artist on school drama, and specifically working in an intensive English centre. So these are, as many of the people on this webinar would know, intensive English centres are where secondary school age students will go recently after arriving in Australia to kind of focus on their English language learning before moving into mainstream schooling. And so I had this wonderful experience of running school drama in that context. And really for me, it was a light bulb moment seeing how the dramatic context could help students who are otherwise feeling very anxious about speaking in English kind of surpass those feelings of anxiety and start speaking in a lot more English than they had used in the classroom before. And Victoria Campbell had already done school drama work in an intensive English centre. And so that experience for me kind of opened doors to talking to Victoria about it, and also tapping into a whole wealth of research and practice that had already been done on using drama with people learning an additional language. And so from there, I think, and also building on the foundation of school drama, there was a lot of support at Sydney Theatre Company for this idea of, well, let's see how this goes with adults who are learning English. And from there, it was just a matter of finding partners who were willing to give it a go. And it did really help having this huge wealth of research and practice from school drama to be able to start Connected as a new program.
So can I just direct this one to Victoria Campbell? Because as a teaching artist with school drama, how has the Connected program been adapted or shaped to meet the needs of quite a specific group of participants?
So, as Zoe said, this is the context in which we're working with Connected is quite different to a lot of other school drama contexts. But we took a lot of the principles and concepts of school drama into that space. And initially we worked very much with the same structure that school drama had, the 7-week episodic text process. But over time, and actually one of the points of difference that I think is really crucial is that it's not a professional learning for the educators who are already working in that space. We go on and actually create drama experiences for the learning of English, rather than also having professional learning for the teacher who's also working in that space, or the manager or the therapist, whoever it is that's working in that space. So it's very much a process drama. And initially we did work with texts and novels, but we wanted to start exploring other forms of story. And so we started experimenting with traditional folk tales and fairy tales and myths and legends. And we found that that was a really potent source to work with adults, that we shaped some of those stories into really sparse pretexts that had so much space for the imaginations of the participants that it was really engaging and really effective, and lots of skills were being developed there, literacy skills and whatnot. Zoe, you might want to add something there that I might be missing, but I think it keeps evolving, and every context, like Robyn and John said, every context that we work in is quite different and the needs are different. So for example, in one context that we work in, and I won't say the name, you might have, we work with a 7-week program, but you might have 3 people 1 week, 10 people the next, and then 3 new people in the following week. So it's a very flexible space, and we need to adjust and adapt as we move through. Zoe, did you want to add something to that?
No, I think that's a good description of the kind of spaces we work in. And it's probably worth mentioning too that usually we work with a group of adults who there might be, you know, 5 different languages in the room. So there's a lot of different backgrounds and life experiences as well. It's usually not working with a group with a shared language.
So Victoria, did you want to continue on with Connected?
I think if there's questions, we could respond to questions. I don't know how, we could go on forever about Connected, because it's such an interesting program. It's such an interesting marriage of traditional stories. You know, and I think the thing about the Connected program is that over time, over the 4 years that we've been working with it, the other shaping that's happened is that we negotiate the story into a new story at the end of the 7 weeks. It's often, if we're working with the traditional myth of Icarus, for example, it'll be a very different version of Icarus at the end. And I think that's a sort of a point of difference to the school drama program, that we are creating stories anew collaboratively with the participants. And it's one of the strengths of the programs, I think.
Can I just ask any of the 4 of you, if you had to give advice to another organisation who were looking to develop a similar sort of partnership, what advice would you give them? Robyn, can we start with you?
Well, I think it's going to take some time, invest some time in talking about what you're hoping to do, what the expectations are in the different partners who are going to work together. I think taking the time to be really open about listening to each other and working together in a way that however many of you are working together are happy with what's happening. Also be aware that it's going to take time to achieve that sort of most effective program or space. It's not going to happen overnight. I think start small. I think one of the things that has been really important is to have that lengthy time with a pilot to enable us to shape things in a way that we're really going to meet the professional learning needs of the teachers, as well as be an effective intervention for children and young people. And I think being transparent about what you're doing, what your own organisation needs to happen is important as well. I think we've been lucky that even though there's been challenges, there's always been that commitment from our partnership to find a way to work through difficulties and work together. So they're just some things that I think have been important.
John?
I think that my predecessor, Helen Hrustovsky, and Robyn both started their careers as primary teachers, and I think that that had a lot to do with the development of the program. But there was very much a deep understanding from both organisations, from both leaders, about how what the program could do and should do and how it could operate. And I think that those principles were made very clear early on. So I think that was part of it. I think it is, I mean, for us, it's just been the greatest joy. And it is a program we couldn't do without the University of Sydney and Robyn Ewing particularly. So I think it is about finding, the right match, in that, and being really clear, I think, about how you know, are you on the same page with the goals, but also with how you want to look at it, how you want to investigate it, how you want to evaluate it? What are the ethics that you're going to apply to that partnership and to the program? I think, you know, and also questions of IP and having those discussions early on and an ongoing discussion as well. And for us, our MOU between Sydney Uni and STC, I think, has been really good. It's hard to big organisations, it's hard to get an MOU together, but actually putting that together was really useful. And when we revisit that and go, actually, this needs updating because that's now not how we're working. But I think that that's really important, that there is a clarity, I think, to the partnership. But I think for it to be authentic, then it is about going, well, this isn't a program that we could just do ourselves or that Sydney Uni could just do themselves. It could only happen with the two of us. And I think if it wasn't that relationship, then it wouldn't be an authentic partnership.
Zoe, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I'd like to just to add to what Robyn was talking about, and John as well, about authentic partnerships. And I think with starting the Connected program and approaching some NGOs and registered training organisations, I think it was really important for us to spend the time to get to know them and get to know how we could best support the services and the education programs that they were already offering. And I think particularly in the space of working with refugee and migrant communities, there is anxiety that you might potentially be there to take stories or to develop work that doesn't genuinely engage participants. And I think one of the really great things that that we've been able to do is to reassure our partners that we are there to support the services that they already offer and to enrich those through Connected, and it's not about taking things away. So that's been really important to be clear about every time that we work with a new partner.
And Victoria, any advice?
Not really advice, but I think I suppose the comment that I would make about the whole process is really the philosophy that school drama has engendered in the community of teaching artists and all the partners and all the teachers and students that have been engaged in this, is that we are conceived as a community of learners, that no one, even though we all have different expertise, that it's a shared learning space and we learn from each other. And I think there's something about really, and that's to do with Robyn and John, and you know, really setting that conceptualization of what the space is for everybody. I think that can really help in a partnership. Yeah, so I think that makes this program quite unique and the partnership quite unique.
And I'd agree that I do think it is unique, but can I ask where to from here? So let's go back around the boards. Robyn?
Well, I don't think we've reached the end of our at the end of the road in terms of what we're doing. I think where to from here is exploring, you know, where else teachers would like us to bring school drama. I think that school drama will continue to be developed in different ways and morph into other kinds of co-mentoring programs. Just one example, I think, is the work that Olivia Carolus has been doing with preschool educators and looking at particularly puppetry as well as other process drama strategies to work inclusively in preschool contexts. So I think that's an example of where it can go. You know, I think it's really quite limitless. As I said, there are still some other places in Australia that would like school drama. I think we can continue to work with with teachers who are and principals who are, you know, our principal stakeholders for the classic school drama, to see how it can be adapted. And I think School Drama Hub is an example of that, so that where teachers who have often been engaged in the school drama program initially are keen to come back and keep developing their drama skills and strategies. And that's a different model where they meet after school and talk about their own context, and we share more possibilities with them. They take that away and try it with their classes and come back and check in, and we go further. So I think where to from here is a difficult question to answer, because it will depend on both the needs but also the imaginations of the people that we're working with.
John?
I think that the program is about, the aim of the program is to make the program redundant. It's to share the professional learning with teachers so that we will never go back and work in that classroom with that teacher. That once we've worked with them, they'll continue to use the approach and apply it not only in the English and literacy classrooms, but across their entire curriculum. And we've got some great research that shows that that does happen. But that's kind of an odd thing for a program to really aim to be redundant. I think we've still got a long way to go until we are redundant. And part of that is also, you know, our relationship with Sydney Uni and sharing it with initial teacher education courses as well. I think that where to next is, if you had have asked me before a global pandemic and working at a theatre company, now it's to stay solvent. But if you had have asked me 6 months ago, I think it would have been about some government support. We've been really, apart from the City of Sydney, we've been fully funded through philanthropic support, mainly private foundations and family foundations. And I would really like to see some government support, and also other companies perhaps stepping in and delivering similar programs across the other 4 art forms. I think that's the kind of the dream, you know, and building on the enormous amount of work that's happened in Australia, the UK, around the world, in artist in residence programs, but that do have that really strong primary focus on supporting primary teachers to continue to use the arts in deep and meaningful ways across the curriculum. Yes, but I can't see that happening now that we're in recession.
I'm not going to leave it on that cheery note, so I'm just going to ask Zoe. Zoe, where do you see Connected, or a version of Connected?
Thanks for that note, John. So hopeful. Like John, I think there's like an answer before COVID and an answer now, but I think since working on Connected, I've met a lot of educators who work in the adult learning space, and they're always really interested in what we're doing. And I think there's a lot of scope to share these approaches with the hundreds of teachers who are working with adults learning English week in and week out. Immediately, it's more about how can we translate this creative collaborative space into online workshops, but I'm also hoping that we'll be back to face at some point in the near future.
Well, I think we're all hoping that. Victoria, do you want, because Victoria, you've had a foot in both camps as a teaching artist in school drama, but now also in Connected. So where to from here for you or for the programs?
Right. Pre-COVID, post-COVID answer. No, I just want to say that I think with Connected, which is a program I'm more involved in at the moment, even though I spent, you know, a good 7 years with school drama and still do. I think the research, Zoe's research is actually, hasn't mentioned it, but Zoe's actually researching the efficacy of school drama, and we're moving more, and Zoe, please chime in, that even though ostensibly school Connected is a English language strategy, if you like, that we're very interested in the social benefits of drama as well. And so you might want to talk to that a bit more, but particularly in those contexts in which we work. So I think research is probably a way forward for Connected and somehow disseminating that information.
Okay, look, how about if you've got a question? I've got one from Helen so far. It's not so much a question as I suppose an affirmation. So Helen's written, continue to dream and imagine. The program's considered foundations enhance its flexibility and adaptability. Teachers who engage with the program rate it very highly for learning and for their engagement and enjoyment. The model is so strong and it has a long way to go. Jenny said that the discussion's been fascinating and you can still inspire others despite the present challenges. So we've got some lovely comments, but have we got any questions that people would like to ask these four learned people we have here?
While we're waiting, can I just say that I think it's even more important now for these arts-rich programs to be in place in schools because, you know, there's, if you like, decreasing attention on the importance of arts and creativity in terms of the way some school systems, some school sectors are continuing to focus on a fairly narrow and reductive approach to learning and to learning literacy and to learning language. So, you know, I think we've got a lot of work to do with our system and sector leaders, in a sense, to help them understand the incredible importance of the arts, not only for who we are, but in terms of enhancing learning across the curriculum. So, you know, that's a concern for me, that we've still got a long way to go.
I agree. Look, I've got a couple of questions here related to teaching artists. Helen's asking, do the teaching artists have teaching qualifications or are they primarily actors first? And another one about how Sydney Theatre Company has supported teaching artists in their own learning. So given that, well, you've all been teaching artists, so does anybody want to have a go at that, answering the question about teaching artists?
I could kick off, but I'd be really interested in the others, and particularly Victoria's done some research on our teaching artists. But I think that really early on, the initiative was, you know, more they're not working on the stage to be teaching artists, and through that, really, you know, over the 10 years, and we now have 40 teaching artists that we work with. It's really about, it's perhaps less about of the actors and it's more of the applied theatre and community theatre artists who have the experience and deep understanding of facilitation. There are still great actors who also walk the kind of dual areas of being fantastic actors and artists in their own right, but also walk that beautiful space of being magnificent teaching artists, magnificent facilitators. But I think they're never on their own either. And something that has developed over the past sort of 6 or 7 years that we've really invested in is bringing all of our teaching artists together for a week every year, flying them from WA and Darwin and Auckland to Sydney for a really intensive week. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a PhD in this area or it's your first year, everyone comes or they don't work on the program that year. And it's a pretty expensive week to run. I think it costs about $28,000 or something. So it's a big investment for the company to make. But I think that's really important, where it's not, this is how you teach the program. There's a little bit of that, but it's also about, I think, hopefully giving the teaching artists agency and going, everyone will do this differently. And you're not leaving your other experience behind. You're bringing that into the classroom. I don't know, Zoe and Victoria, you might like to add on to that.
I think, as John said, I'll just add on to that little bit of research that I did in late 2018, early 2019, where I interviewed 5 teaching artists to gauge their perspective of what it was like to be a teaching artist in the school drama program. And you've hinted to that, John. Unequivocally, it's a positive experience. They, for their professional lives, their personal lives, I mean, gainful employment is always a positive, but beyond that, it was the training and support or the professional learning that Sydney Theatre Company provided for these teaching artists. And as John said, the themes that emerged in that research was that they all felt that they were given agency, that they didn't have to have this cookie cutter, this is what a teaching artist is, that they were respected for their individual iterations of what drama was and their facilitations of drama prior to that. And the other thing that was really, and this goes back to my previous point that I made about the community of learners, that they really felt that there was a collegiality that they hadn't experienced, and some of them could draw on experiences with other theatre companies, a collegiality and a sharing of ideas. So not only were they developing, there was professional learning in terms of their teaching artists for the school drama program, but a lot of those skills that were given to them within the program, they could take into other areas of their lives. They felt the generosity was quite extraordinary and hadn't really experienced that anywhere else. Yeah.
I think, Victoria, that is also because Robyn, Ewing, Zoe, you and I are all teaching artists and in the classroom once a week working with students as well. And so we're certainly still learning as well. But I think that we're not administrators, we're real colleagues in that space. We have the same challenges that they have. We have this, the same year 3 student who's, having the tantrum and how to handle that, and we're asking for advice from the group sometimes too. So I think there is that collegiality really comes from us not being administrators, but us being teaching artists.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that over the time that the program has been running, how many of the teaching artists have gone on to study to become teachers because they've been inspired by the teachers that they have worked with through school drama. So it really speaks to the co-mentoring model, that the teaching artists are learning just as much as they are sharing with the teachers.
Well, Zoe, stay on that point because we've had a couple of questions that relate to the development of the co-mentoring relationship. So just a couple of people have asked if we can elaborate on how that co-mentoring relationship is developed or fostered. So do you want to go first?
One for Robyn Ewing, who came up with the term, I think.
Well, okay. Well, Robyn, do you want to jump in?
Well, the co-mentoring relationship is about respecting each other and the knowledge and skills and experience that both the teaching artist and the teacher bring to the context. The teacher has the knowledge of literacy and the curriculum more broadly, the knowledge of the children as individuals, the knowledge of managing that particular context. The teaching artist brings their understandings of using drama-rich strategies and their also considerable understanding of working with children in different contexts, including school drama. And so it's a sort of mutual respect. And of course, it works best when there is that genuine desire from both the teaching artist and the teacher to work together. Obviously, at the beginning, the teacher will share their expertise with the drama-rich strategies, but it's always in collaboration with the teacher about what will and won't work in this particular context, with the idea that over the time, the teacher will become more and more confident and growing in expertise about using those skills, but having the teaching artists there to support them. And I think Zoe's point that so many of the teaching artists see new possibilities for them as educators as well is demonstrates that synergy and that symbiotic relationship where it works best.
We've also got a question here asking, do you work with Indigenous teaching artists in Indigenous communities?
We don't work in remote Indigenous communities. There are schools that we work with that have a high number or are only for First Nations people, and in those schools we work with teaching artists who are First Nations. And look, I think that's something that has been tricky, if we're being really honest, that finding teaching artists who are interested in working in this space, can be tricky, a full stop, but also finding First Nations teaching artists as well can be really hard. And I think what we've sort of done is identified artists from a range of backgrounds actually who we wanted to work with to ensure that we do have a diverse group of teaching artists for the whole range of contexts that we work in, and starting off by sort of the apprentice model really of shadowing and working with really experienced teaching artists and building up that experience and expertise and confidence really quickly through that, so that we're sort of giving them the skills that they need to be able to jump in and lead the program. Zoe, have I missed anything there, do you think?
I guess the only other thing is that in some cases where it isn't possible to have a First Nations teaching artist working in a context where there's a high proportion of Indigenous students, is how important it is to engage with the Indigenous education officer or similar at the school or in the juvenile justice facility where we're working, and to really work as colleagues in another co-mentoring relationship to acknowledge that we don't have that cultural knowledge and expertise, but we can work as a team to really make the learning experience for students as rich and encouraging as possible.
So once again, it comes down to relationships, that you're building those unique, wonderful relationships. Is there anyone out there who would like to ask another question? I think I've got through all the questions that people have asked, or if anybody on the panel, as it were, would like to offer any words of wisdom. They're all just smiling and nodding. I can't see any more questions coming through. No, nothing. Well, I would just like to say that, yes, I was involved in the pilot in 2009, and I'm just amazed how the program has evolved, grown, become richer. I don't know why you were just thinking about just sending it over the ditch. I think it should go around the world and back. So that's my 2 cents worth. If we haven't got anybody, okay, I've got someone here. Where can we read more about the different case studies? Because someone is very interested in looking at the preschool drama program that maybe Olivia is sort of leading there. So where could people, Robyn, where could people access?
Well, a number of the PhDs and honours projects and Masters by Research would already be available through the University of Sydney Library. And the school drama book does talk a bit about the research at the beginning, as well as explaining the program, etc. There are a number of articles that have been written about school drama, and there's more to come, aren't there, John and Zoe and Victoria? So yes, perhaps we could compile a bit of a bibliography and send that out to people that are interested.
Yes, I've got a number of people who are nodding that they want that. So, and John's just put a link into his PhD.
Not to read all of it, but there is a summary of all of the research that's taken place up until that point, if people wanted to have a read of a condensed summary.
And Olivia's research, Olivia will be writing about her research, you know, now out of her PhD. So there will be more to come.
Okay. Well, let's make sure that everybody gets access to that, because it seems like quite a number of people are very interested in it. Can I just thank all of you for sharing, literally sharing with us. It's been wonderful. And I thank everybody who's attended, all the participants. Hope you've gained something from it. We're getting lots of thank yous. And I'll just say bye for everyone.
Thanks so much, Robyn. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.